Good evening, settle in now. Let the concerns of your day begin to recede, like a tide pulling away from the shore, leaving only the smooth, quiet sand of the present moment. Tonight, we are not setting sail on a wine-dark sea, nor are we marching into the clangor of battle. Instead, we are journeying inward, to a place built not of stone and timber, but of ink and memory, a sanctuary of silence in a loud and turbulent world. We are about to walk the silent halls of the great library of Alexandria, not as a visitor, but as a resident, through the eyes of one who called it home, one who watched it burn. This is a story of what we save when all seems lost, what we lose in the turning of history's page, and what happens when an entire world of knowledge begins to fade into a whisper. So find a comfortable position. Let your body feel heavy, supported, and at ease. Are you ready to listen to the silence? Dim the lights now, if you haven't already. Let the sounds of your world, the hum of electricity, the distant traffic, the ticking of a clock, fade into the back. Allow your breathing to slow, to find its own quiet, steady rhythm. Inhale and exhale. We are traveling back in time, nearly 2,000 years, to a city that was the crossroads of the world, the magnificent, sprawling, chaotic city of Alexandria in Egypt. But before we step into the hallowed halls of knowledge, you must first feel the city itself. Feel it in your bones. Imagine you are a boy, no older than 10 years. Your name is Hypatius. The Egyptian sun is a heavy, warm blanket on your neck and shoulders, and the well-worn stones of the street are hot beneath your bare, calloused feet. The air is a thick tapestry of smells, woven together so tightly you can almost taste it. The sharp, clean brine of the Mediterranean Sea carried from the great harbor, the exotic, dusty sweetness of spices from the market, cinnamon, frankincense, cardamom, and the raw, human scent of 1,000 people moving, sweating, living around you. You are moving through this river of humanity, a small, unnoticed stone in its current. You hear the babble of languages, a symphony of the known world. The dominant melody is Koine Greek, the language of scholars and merchants, but underneath it, you hear the guttural tones of Coptic spoken by the native dockworkers, the sharp, clipped Latin of a passing Roman patrol, the sing-song chatter of Hebrew from the Jewish quarter. Seagulls cry overhead, their calls sharp and lonely against the vast blue sky. Your footsteps, quiet and bare, make almost no sound against the pavement, a stark contrast to the clatter of donkey hooves on stone and the rumble of wooden cart wheels. You are a ghost in the daylight, a shadow in the sun. You have no parents you can remember. Your home is a shifting concept, a temporary claim on a small patch of the world. Some nights it's the cool, shadowed space behind the columns of the temple of Serapis. Other nights it's a narrow alleyway where the smell of baking bread from a nearby shop offers a phantom comfort. Your blanket is a tattered piece of brown wool, thin and rough against your skin, a poor defense against the surprising chill of the desert night. Each day is a quest, a silent, desperate hunt for two things: food and safety. A discarded piece of flatbread, a bruised fig, a handful of dates offered by a kind-hearted stranger. These are you have learned the geography of survival, the rhythms of the city. You know which merchants are quick to anger and which will turn a blind eye to a boy lingering too long near their stalls. You are invisible to the wealthy citizens who pass by, their tunics of fine, white linen, impossibly clean in this dusty world. You are invisible to the Roman soldiers, their armor and leather straps polished to a high sheen, their faces impassive as they march in formation, symbols of an order you can only observe from the outside. But you are not invisible to yourself. In the long hours of stillness, when you are hiding from the midday sun or the watchman at night, you observe everything. You watch, you listen, you absorb. You have learned the Greek letters not in a classroom, but by tracing them in the dust with a stick, mimicking the elegant signs that hang above the shops of the scroll sellers and the wine merchants. Alpha, beta, gamma. They are beautiful shapes, abstract and full of a secret promise. You are hungry, a deep, persistent ache in your belly that you have known your entire life. But there is another hunger growing within you, a craving you cannot name. It is a hunger for order, for meaning. The world around you is a dazzling, overwhelming chaos of noise and color, of wealth and poverty, of kindness and cruelty. You crave the silence of understanding. The quiet logic you sense is hidden within those beautiful, dusty letters. One afternoon, the sky, which had been a clear, brilliant blue, turns a bruised purple with astonishing speed. A sudden wind whips through the wide avenues, carrying with it the smell of ozone and wet earth. The first fat drops of rain begin to fall, dark circles appearing on the light-colored stones. The crowds scatter, merchants hastily covering their wares, people running for the shelter of porticos and awnings. You too seek refuge, ducking into a deep, recessed alcove near a massive, white marble building. Its walls are unlike any you have seen before, so vast and clean they seem to touch the sky itself, their surfaces gleaming in the strange, pre-storm light. You huddle in the back of the alcove, making yourself small as the downpour begins in earnest, a thick, gray sheet of water that turns the dusty streets into muddy streams. You are not alone for long. An old man, his robe simple and the color of undyed linen but impeccably clean, his face a roadmap of deep wrinkles, finds you there. He is also seeking shelter from the storm, but he moves with a slow, deliberate grace, as if the rain is a minor inconvenience rather than a chaotic event. He does not shout or shoo you away, as so many others would. He simply looks at you, his gaze not one of pity, but of calm, intelligent curiosity. His eyes, a pale, watery blue, drift down to the broken piece of slate you carry with you everywhere. In the moments before the rain, you had been scratching letters on it with a sharp stone. He points a long, bony finger at the slate. He asks you what they mean. Your voice, when it comes out, is a mouse's squeak, barely audible above the drumming of the rain. You tell him the letters and then the word they form, gnosis, knowledge. He nods slowly, and a strange, gentle light seems to kindle in the depths of his pale eyes. It's a light of recognition, of understanding. He doesn't ask where you learned it, or why you are alone. He asks a different question, a question that will change the entire course of your life. He asks if you would like to see where the words come from. Not just that word, he clarifies, but all of them. Every word you have ever heard and millions you have never imagined. He leads you inside the great marble building. And the world stops. The roar of the rain, the noise of the city, the entire chaotic symphony of Alexandria vanishes, replaced by a profound, humming silence. It is not an empty silence, but a silence full of weight, full of presence. You are standing in the great hall of the Library of Alexandria. The ceiling is so high above you that it seems to hold its own sky, lost in shadow. Sunlight washed clean by the rain streams through a series of high windows, piercing the gloom in great golden shafts. In these beams of light, countless dust motes dance and swirl like tiny, glittering stars, like a private galaxy. And all around you, on shelves of dark, fragrant cedar wood that rise higher than any building you have ever been inside, are the scrolls. It is a sight that your mind can barely comprehend. Not hundreds, but thousands, tens of thousands. You will later learn there are hundreds of thousands. Each one is a tightly rolled cylinder of pale papyrus, tucked neatly into its own cubbyhole, its end marked with a small wooden tag. Each one a silent voice, a sleeping mind waiting to be awakened. The air itself is different here. It smells of old paper, a dry, sweet, dusty scent. It smells of cedar wood, a clean and resinous perfume. And it smells of something else, something ancient and intangible, something you can only describe as the smell of time. You stand frozen, your small, ragged form a stark contrast to the immense, ordered grandeur of the hall. Your jaw hangs open, and for the first time, you feel a sense of awe so profound it borders on fear. The old man, whose name you will soon learn is Philemon, the head librarian, kneels beside you. His knees crackle softly as he lowers himself to your level. He sees the raw wonder in your eyes, the way your small, dirty hands are trembling, as if wanting to reach out and touch everything at once, to confirm that it is real. This, he whispers, his voice like the rustle of dry leaves, is the memory of mankind. It is a great conversation that has been happening for 1,000 years. He gestures to the silent shelves. In that corner, Aristotle still teaches his students about the nature of the soul. Up there, Euclid still draws his perfect lines and proves his theorems. And over there in the poetry section, Homer still sings of the anger of Achilles and the long journey home of Odysseus. He looks back at you, and he sees the hunger in your eyes, the deep, nameless craving, and he finally understands it. He recognizes it as his own. He offers you a choice, a pact, a life of servitude to this place. He promises you a bed to sleep on, clean clothes to wear, and food to eat every single day. In return, you will dedicate your life to these scrolls, not just to reading them, but to protecting them, to preserving them, to ensuring their voices are not silenced by the slow, relentless decay of time. You will sweep the floors, and you will learn to mix the ink, and you will learn the craft of the scribe. You will become a guardian of this legacy. You do not hesitate. You cannot form words. You simply nod, a frantic, desperate motion, as tears well up in your eyes, blurring the impossible sight of the endless shelves into a soft, wavering tapestry. In that moment, surrounded by the silent, waiting words of the dead, you make a solemn, unspoken vow. This is your home now. This is your family. This is your purpose. That night, you do not sleep in a cold, damp alley. You sleep in a small, clean cell in the librarian's quarters, a part of the vast complex attached to the library. The room is bare, containing only a wooden stool, a small table with a clay water jug, and a cot. The mattress is a simple straw-stuffed pallet, but to you, it is the softest, most luxurious thing you have ever felt. The scratchy wool blanket they gave you is clean and smells faintly of lavender. Through the small, high window cut into the stone wall, you can see the great beam of the Pharos lighthouse as it sweeps across the dark sea and the rooftops of the city. A steady, reassuring pulse in the night. The sound of the city is a distant, muted murmur, a beast tamed by distance and stone walls. The real sound, the one that fills your senses, is the living silence of the library next door. It feels as if the entire building is breathing slowly and deeply, inhaling and exhaling with the weight of all the thoughts, dreams, histories, and poems contained within its walls. You close your eyes, the weariness of a lifetime of survival finally settling upon you. And for the first time that you can remember, you do not feel hungry or afraid. You feel found. You are no longer an orphan of the streets. You are a child of the library. Your new life begins before the first light of dawn paints the eastern sky. An older acolyte, a boy named Cassian with a perpetually serious face, shakes you gently awake. In the flickering lamplight, you dress in a simple, clean tunic, the unfamiliar feeling of smooth linen against your skin, a small miracle. You follow Cassian through silent, cool corridors to the scriptorium, a long, quiet room where a dozen men and women are already bent over heavy wooden desks. The only sounds are the gentle, rhythmic scratching of reed pens on papyrus, the soft clearing of a throat, the quiet rustle of a scroll being unrolled. The air here has its own distinct perfume, a scent you will come to associate with purpose and creation for the rest of your life. It is the smell of fresh ink, a dark, earthy smell of lamp soot and gum arabic, and the sweet, slightly grassy scent of new papyrus. Philemon is there, waiting for you. He greets you with a small, gentle smile, and shows you to a small, empty stool at the end of a long table. He does not give you a scroll to work on. He teaches you the fundamentals. He shows you how to hold the calamos, the reed pen, how to trim its nib to a fine point with a sharp knife. He shows you the small stone mortars where you grind the charcoal and mix it with water and gum to create the black ink, a process that requires patience and precision. Too little water and the ink is a thick sludge. Too much and it will bleed and feather on the page. He teaches you how to unroll an old, precious scroll without cracking its fragile, brittle surface. using 2 hands and a slow, steady pressure. Your first task, he explains, is not to write but to watch. For weeks you do nothing else. You sit on your stool and you watch the scribes, observing the rhythm of their work, the calm focus in their posture, the economical, graceful movements of their hands. You are learning not just a craft but a discipline, a form of moving meditation. Finally, the day comes when Philemon deems you ready for your first assignment. He brings you a scroll that is old and worn, its edges flaking away like dry skin. It is a collection of fables by a man named Aesop, stories of talking animals and simple moral lessons. Your job, Philemon explains, is to create a new, clean copy before the original succumbs to time and turns to dust. He places a fresh sheet of papyrus before you, its surface smooth and pale. He fills a small inkwell for you. Your heart thrums in your chest. Your hand trembles as you dip the calamos into the ink and make your first mark on the page. The Greek letters, which once seemed so magical and perfect when you traced them in the dust, now feel clumsy and foreign under your own hand. Your lines are shaky. The ink flows too quickly from the pen, creating a dark, ugly blot on the pristine surface. You want to weep with frustration, the simple task feeling as monumental as building a pyramid. But Philemon is infinitely patient. He does not scold or show disappointment. He pulls up a stool beside you, his presence calm and reassuring. He gently takes your hand in his own, his skin dry and papery, and guides your fingers, showing you the proper pressure, the right angle to hold the pen. It is not a race, Hypatius, he says softly, his voice a low murmur. Think of it as a conversation. You are having a conversation with a storyteller who has been dead for centuries. You must listen carefully to what his words say, and then you must speak clearly and beautifully on his behalf, so that someone else may hear him a century from now. His words shift your perspective. It is not about perfection. It is about transmission. It is about being a faithful vessel. You take a slow, deep breath, dip your pen again, and begin the next letter. Slowly, painstakingly, you learn the dance of ink and papyrus. Weeks turn into months, and months into the slow turning of years. Your hand grows steady, the muscles in your fingers learning a new kind of memory. The clumsy scratches of your first attempts evolve into clean, elegant script. You learn the different styles of writing required for different works. The formal, blocky uncials for important philosophical texts, the faster, more practical cursive for letters and accounts. You learn the shorthand and abbreviations that scribes used to save space and time. You even learn the delicate art of illumination, how to mix crushed minerals with egg yolk to create vibrant pigments of red and blue, used to decorate the first letter of a new section. You also learn that a scribe's greatest sin is not a blotch of ink or a shaky line, but an error in transcription, a failure of listening in that silent conversation with the past. One day, you are copying a medical text by the great physician Galen. It is a complex work, full of descriptions of ailments and precise instructions for remedies. Your mind, lulled by the repetitive motion of your hand, begins to wander. You think of the ships in the harbor, of the taste of fresh dates from the market. In that moment of distraction, your eye skips a line. You miscopy a single word, changing a dosage for a treatment from 1 drachma to 10. Later that day, an older scribe, a stern man named Ptolemy whose job it is to review the work of the apprentices, catches the error. He does not scold you loudly. He does something far more terrifying. He summons you to his desk, his face grim, and simply points to the word you wrote. A mistake in a poem, he says, his voice flat and cold, and a line loses its beauty. A mistake in a history, and a fact is corrupted. A mistake in this scroll, he taps the papyrus with a sharp fingernail, and a man somewhere, 100 years from now, loses the weight of that responsibility, settles upon you like a physical cloak. You feel its heaviness on your shoulders. You understand now, you are not just a copyist. You are a guardian. Every letter is a sacred trust. Your work is not always about creating the new. More often than not, It is about saving the old, fighting a constant, quiet war against decay. You are taught the delicate arts of restoration. You learn how to repair scrolls damaged by the relentless Egyptian humidity, which can cause the ink to fade and the papyrus to rot. You learn how to combat the tiny insects, the bookworms that can tunnel through a history of the Ptolemaic kings, leaving a trail of nonsensical dust. You are taught to make a special, thin paste of flour and vinegar, which you apply with a fine brush made of badger hair to mend tears in the fragile pages. You learn the painstaking process of gently steaming and separating layers of papyrus that have fused together over the centuries. A surgical procedure where one wrong move could turn a line of poetry into a meaningless smudge. It is slow, methodical, nerve-wracking work. You spend an entire week on a single, badly damaged scroll of poetry by a woman named Sappho from the island of Lesbos. Only fragments of her work remain, like the broken pieces of a beautiful statue. As you carefully align the torn edges and piece together the broken lines of Greek, you feel a profound, melancholic connection to the long-dead poet. You feel a shared sadness for all that has been lost, for all the voices that have been irrevocably silenced. In these moments, you feel that you are not just mending paper, you are mending the very memory of the world, trying to make it whole again, one tiny fragment at a time. As you grow older, moving from boyhood into the lanky frame of a young man, your skill and dedication are Philemon gives you a new responsibility, a task of immense trust. You are to begin work on the Pnyx, the great catalog of the library. It is a monumental project started by the poet and scholar Callimachus centuries before, an ambitious, perhaps impossible, attempt to list, describe, and categorize every single scroll in the entire collection. It is here, in this work, that you truly begin to understand that the library is not a random hoard of books. It is an ordered universe, a physical manifestation of human reason. The scrolls are organized by subject: poetry, history, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, rhetoric. Within each category, they are arranged alphabetically by author. Each author's entry includes a short biography, a list of their known works, and the first line of each work to ensure proper identification. Your job is to verify the information on the small wooden tags, the syllaboi, that hang from the end of each scroll, ensuring they match the contents and the records in the great ledger books of the catalog. It is through this work that the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the place becomes viscerally real to you. You are not just handling books. You are holding the intellectual output of entire civilizations. You hold in your hands the comedies of Aristophanes, the histories of Herodotus and Thucydides, the philosophical dialogues of Plato, the medical treatises of Hippocrates, the collected laws of Athens, the star charts of Babylonian astronomers. You hold the thoughts, the arguments, the discoveries, and the dreams of 1,000 lifetimes. You are the cartographer of this vast continent of knowledge. The years pass in a quiet, scholarly rhythm, marked not by seasons, which change little in Alexandria, but by the projects you complete. A new copy of Sophocles' Oedipus Rex, the restoration of a damaged section of Manetho's History of Egypt, the painstaking verification of the entire section on rhetoric for the Pnyx. You are a young man now, your face beginning to show the lines of concentration that mark all the scribes. Your world is bounded by the library walls, but within them, you have traveled further than any sailor who has ever docked at the great harbor. You have walked with Plato through the olive groves of his academy in Athens. You have stood beside Eratosthenes, a former head librarian, as he used shadows and simple geometry to calculate the circumference of the entire earth with astonishing accuracy. You have listened to the incredible, sometimes fantastical, histories told by Herodotus, tales of strange lands and stranger customs. You have found your place in the universe. It is here, on a simple wooden stool, with the smell of ink in the air and the weight of a scroll in your hands. There is a deep, quiet joy in this life, a joy that the loud, chaotic world outside could never understand. It is the simple, profound satisfaction of a perfectly formed letter, the deep relief of a successful repair on a crumbling manuscript, the electric thrill of discovering a marginal note, a scribbled comment from a reader who lived 500 years before you, arguing with the author across the abyss of time. The city of Alexandria still rages and bustles just beyond the walls, with its endless political intrigues, its passionate religious disputes, its commerce and its crimes. But here, within these walls, there is only the calm, steady, sacred work of remembering. You are a monk in a monastery of the mind, and the scrolls are your silent, holy scripture. You have become a quiet authority within these walls. The other scribes, even those older than you, now bring you their most challenging problems. A passage in a lost Etruscan dialect that no one can decipher. A section of papyrus so riddled with insect holes it resembles delicate lace. An ink that has faded to a ghostly whisper on the page. You find solutions with a calm, patient ingenuity that reminds many of the young Philemon. You teach the new acolytes now, just as he once taught you. You show them how to trim a reed pen, how to mix the ink, how to hold their hand to create the perfect curve of a sigma. You see the same mixture of terror and awe in their eyes that you once felt, and you guide them with a gentleness born of memory. Your life is a study in quiet contentment. Your days are measured by the slow unrolling and re-rolling of scrolls. Your seasons by the changing quality of the light that falls through the high windows of the scriptorium. Yet the world outside does not remain still. The city of Alexandria is a cauldron of ideas and tensions, and sometimes the steam from its boiling finds its way over the library walls. You begin to notice it in small ways. A visiting scholar from Rome speaks with a casual disdain for the endless genealogies of provincial kings, housed in your halls, remarking that a single good legion is worth more than all the poetry of Greece. You overhear hushed, passionate arguments in the colonnades between traditional Platonists and the followers of new, mystical philosophies that are bubbling up from the city's religious underbelly. One afternoon, as you work on a treatise on botany by Theophrastus, a sound from the street below penetrates the thick stone walls. It is the sound of a man preaching, his voice loud and full of a fiery certainty. He is not debating, he is proclaiming. He speaks of one God, a jealous God, and decries the statues in the temples and the scrolls in the libraries as the vanities of pagan idolaters. A few of the younger scribes go to the window to look, their faces a mixture of curiosity and amusement. You do not move from your desk, but the sound is a discordant note in the placid symphony of your life. It is the sound of a world that does not value conversation, a world that believes it already has all the answers it needs. It is a sound that frightens you in a way you cannot quite articulate. Philemon is an old man now, his body frail, his movements slow and deliberate. He spends less time managing the daily affairs of the library and more time in his private study, a room filled with the most ancient and fragile scrolls. He summons you there often. The room smells of dust, honeyed beeswax used for sealing, and the faint, dry scent of Philemon himself. He has you read to him, his pale blue eyes now clouded with age, half closed as he listens. You read from the Stoic philosophers, from the comedies of Menander, from the histories of Polybius. One evening, as you finish a passage describing the careful, diplomatic statecraft of a long-dead king, Philemon speaks, his voice a dry whisper. They think these walls are permanent. Hypatius, he says, not looking at you but at the shadows gathering in the corners of the room. They believe that because this place has always been here, it will always be here. They have forgotten that a library is not the stone and the timber. It is the fragile, flammable paper. It is the ink that can fade. It is a living, breathing thing that can be killed. He turns his head slowly, his gaze finding yours. Your generation will be tested. The world is changing. The age of questions is ending, and an age of answers is beginning. And answers are always the enemy of libraries. His words linger with you. You start to see the library not as a fortress of knowledge, but as a beautiful, delicate shell. You begin a personal project, a secret obsession. You focus your efforts on the works that are unique, the scrolls that exist only here, the sole surviving copies of plays, poems, and histories. You find the only known copy of a play by Aeschylus, Myrmidons, a work thought to be lost forever, detailing the grief of Achilles for his companion Patroclus. The papyrus is so brittle it threatens to crumble at a touch. You spend a month painstakingly creating a new copy, your every breath held, your every movement a prayer. As you transcribe the powerful, sorrowful lines, you feel as though you are pulling the poet's voice back from the edge of a great, silent cliff. You are not just a scribe, you are a rescuer. The political situation in the wider world, a distant rumble for most of your life, grows into a roar that can no longer be ignored. The Roman Republic is tearing itself apart. Two great generals, Pompey and Julius Caesar, are locked in a civil war that spans the Mediterranean. The conflict, which had seemed like a remote affair concerning men in a distant city, arrives suddenly and violently on the shores of Alexandria. Pompey, defeated, flees to Egypt seeking refuge, only to be assassinated. Soon after, Caesar arrives with his legions, not as a guest, but as a new power to be reckoned with. The city becomes a garrison. The sight of Roman soldiers becomes commonplace, their armor gleaming in the sun, their presence a constant, low-level threat. The scholars of the museum, the great research institution to which the library is attached, try to continue their work. They hold their lectures on geometry and their debates on ethics, but their voices are strained, their arguments hollow against the backdrop of an occupying army. You and the other scribes retreat deeper into your work, trying to erect a wall of routine and silence against the rising tide of chaos. You work with a quiet, desperate urgency, as if the very act of copying a scroll could hold the world together. The final catastrophe begins, as so many do, with fire. During a fierce battle in the city, Caesar, seeking to gain control of the harbor, sets fire to the enemy's ship. It is a sound military tactic, but the wind that day is strong and unpredictable, blowing from the sea towards the land. The flames, with a life of their own, leap from the ships to the wooden warehouses and dock buildings that line the harbor. A great column of black smoke rises over the city, a funeral pyre for Alexandria's commerce. At first, you and the others watch from the high windows of the library, a knot of cold fear tightening in your stomach. The harbor is dangerously close to the royal quarter, where the library is located. Philemon, who seems to have shrunk with age, now appears possessed of a sudden, terrible energy. To the vaults he commands, his voice cracking but clear, every available hand. We must save what we can. Start with the oldest texts, the Pinaches, the medical section. There is no panic, only a grim, ordered haste. You become part of a human chain, passing precious scrolls from the main reading rooms down into the stone-lined cellars, vaults deep beneath the earth that are, you pray, impervious to fire. You run through the halls, the familiar, comforting silence now shattered by the shouting of instructions and the frantic shuffling of hundreds of feet. The smell of smoke, acrid and oily, begins to seep through the walls. It is a violation, a desecration of your sacred air. You work for hours, your body slick with sweat, your lungs burning. Your hands, so accustomed to delicate, precise movements, are now clumsy with haste, grabbing and passing, grabbing and passing. You see scrolls dropped, their precious contents unspooling across the marble floors like wounded things. There is no time to re-roll them. You see a young acolyte weeping silently as he works, tears cutting clean paths through the soot that is beginning to coat his face. You feel a strange sense of detachment, as if you are watching yourself from a great distance. This cannot be real. This is a nightmare from which you will soon awake. But the heat grows more intense. The smoke becomes a thick, choking fog. You can hear the roar of the fire now, a monstrous, hungry beast devouring the city. And then you hear a sound that will haunt you for the rest of your days. A great, cracking groan, followed by the northern wing of the library, the section closest to the docks, has caught fire. The flames have breached your sanctuary. The beast is inside. Chaos erupts. The ordered evacuation dissolves into a desperate flight for survival. Men and women scream, pushing towards the main exits, their terror of the flames overwhelming their devotion to the scrolls. You are caught in the stampede, carried along by the force of the crowd. But you fight against it. You turn and push your way back into the smoke-filled hall. You see Philemon standing near his study, silhouetted against a terrifying orange glow. He is not trying to escape. He is simply standing there, his face a mask of profound, absolute grief, watching as the wooden shelves, the work of centuries, are consumed by fire. "Master," you scream, your voice raw, "we must go." He turns to you, and in the flickering hellish light, his face seems calm. He presses a single, leather-bound codex into your hands. It is not a scroll, but the newer form of book, pages of vellum stitched together. It is his personal journal, his life's work of commentary on the Stoics. "Knowledge is not the scrolls, Hypatius," he whispers, his voice almost inaudible above the roar. "It is what is remembered. Now go, live, remember." He gives you a gentle push towards the exit. You look back one last time and see him turning to face the flames, a frail, defiant captain going down with his great, silent ship. You never see him again. You stumble out into the courtyard, gasping for air, clutching the codex to your chest. The sky is no longer blue, but a roiling canopy of black and orange. Flaming embers, like malevolent red snowflakes, rain down all around you. The world has become an inferno. You join the stream of survivors, your fellow scribes and scholars, their faces blank with shock, their robes singed, their hands empty. You walk through the streets of a city at war, past scenes of carnage and destruction, but your eyes see only one thing: the image of thousands upon thousands of scrolls, the memory of mankind, curling into black, brittle ashes, their silent voices turning into smoke and disappearing into the indifferent sky. The loss is a physical void within you, a hollow space where your heart used to be. The fire eventually burns itself out. The war in the city ends. Julius Caesar is victorious. Life of a sort resumes, but the library is grievously wounded. The northern wing is a blackened skeleton of stone, open to the sky. Historians and accountants will later try to quantify the loss, arguing over numbers. Was it 40,000 scrolls, 70,000, 100,000? The numbers are meaningless. You know the truth. A universe had been housed in that wing, a universe of poetry, of history, of science. It is gone. Not misplaced, not transferred. Gone, erased from existence. In the days that follow, a profound, deathly quiet settles over the surviving parts of the library. The remaining scholars and scribes move like ghosts through the halls, speaking in hushed tones, their faces etched with a shared, unspoken trauma. The work of copying and cataloging seems a pointless mockery now. You are guardians of a crippled kingdom, curators of a graveyard. The joy is gone, replaced by a fierce, sorrowful resolve. You are no longer just a preserver. You are a rebuilder, a salvager, fighting against the terrible knowledge that what has been built so carefully over centuries can be undone in a single, careless afternoon. You are named the new head librarian, not by any official decree, but by a silent consensus. You are the one who remains, the one who holds the memory of what the library was, the one who carries Philemon's last charge. The weight of the responsibility is immense, a physical presence that settles on your shoulders and in your heart. Your youth has been burned away in the fire, leaving behind the hard, unyielding core of your purpose. Your first task is one of mourning. You and the other survivors walk through the ruins of the northern wing. The air still smells of cold ash and wet charcoal. The marble floors are cracked and blackened. The cedar shelves are gone, leaving only their outlines on the soot-stained walls. Here and there, you find the pathetic remains of a scroll, a hardened, carbonized cylinder that crumbles to black dust when touched. It is a Pompeii of the mind. You see the place where the great poetry collection was housed. Homer, Sappho, Pindar, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides. All of them, their multiple editions, their scholarly commentaries, all turn to vapor. You stand in the silence and you do not weep. The grief is too deep for tears. It is a cold, hard stone in your gut. The work of rebuilding begins slowly, painfully. There is no grand gesture from Rome, no influx of gold to restore the collection. Caesar expresses his regrets, but he is a politician and a general, not a scholar. His concerns are with the living, not the dead. The task falls to you. You begin a campaign of letters, writing to every major city, every patron of learning, every private collector in the known world. You write to the library at Pergamum, your great rival, not as a competitor but as a beggar. You plead for copies, for donations, for anything they can spare to help fill the gaping holes on your shelves. It is a humbling, arduous process. Ships arrive bearing crates of scrolls. Each arrival is a small victory, a tiny spark of light against the overwhelming darkness of what was lost. You and your scribes work tirelessly, copying the new arrivals to create duplicates, a lesson learned in the bitterest way. You will never again allow a work to exist in only a single copy if you can help it. The scriptorium is busier than ever, but the atmosphere has changed. The quiet, meditative joy is gone. Now there is a feverish, almost desperate energy to the work. You are in a race against time, against accident, against the carelessness of the world. During this period, you change. The quiet, introspective boy is gone, replaced by a man of action. You become a diplomat, a fundraiser, a manager. You learn to navigate the treacherous currents of Alexandrian politics, flattering a Roman governor here, cajoling a wealthy merchant there. All for the sake of acquiring. You travel, something you never thought you would do. You journey to Rhodes, to Athens, to Ephesus, visiting smaller libraries and the homes of private collectors, searching for lost texts like a hunter stalking rare prey. On these journeys, you see the wider world, and it confirms Philemon's warning. You see the growing power of mystery cults, the rise of charismatic prophets, the increasing reliance on superstition and dogma over reason and inquiry. The world is indeed changing, and you feel like a man trying to shore up a sandcastle as the tide comes in. One day, a shipment arrives from a wealthy collector in Syria. As you are uncrating the scrolls, you find a small, unassuming text tucked among the larger works. It is a treatise on pneumatics by a man named Hero of Alexandria, a brilliant inventor and mathematician who had worked at the museum a century before. As you unroll it, you see diagrams of strange and wonderful machines. A device that uses steam to open temple doors, a wind-powered organ, a fountain that operates on its own. It is a work of breathtaking ingenuity, a glimpse into a world of possibilities, of a future that could have been. And you realize, with a fresh wave of grief, how much knowledge of this kind must have been in the northern wing. Not just poetry and history, but science, engineering, mathematics, the very tools to build a different world. The fire had not just destroyed the past, it had stolen a possible future. Despite your best efforts, the library never fully recovers its former glory. It is a great institution still, but it is wounded, a veteran bearing the scars of a terrible battle. The new acquisitions are numerous, but they cannot replace the unique treasures that were lost. The spirit of the place has been altered. The old confidence, the serene sense of permanence is gone, replaced by a constant, low-grade anxiety, a gnawing awareness of its own fragility. You feel it most keenly at night, when you walk the silent halls alone. The empty spaces on the shelves seem to cry out, silent accusers testifying to your failure. You know it is irrational, but you feel the weight of every lost word as a personal sin. Years continue to pass. Your hair becomes flecked with gray, the lines on your face deepen. You have dedicated your entire life to the library, and you have watched it shrink. The world outside continues its slow, inexorable shift. The Roman Republic dies, and the Roman Empire is born. New religions gain prominence, their followers often openly hostile to the pagan learning your library represents. The institution becomes more and more of an island, its scholars and their work increasingly seen as irrelevant, even dangerous, by the powers that now rule the world. The funding from the royal court, once generous, dwindles to a trickle. You are forced to let go of scribes, to cut back on acquisitions, to make do with less. The great work of preservation continues, but it feels like a holding action, a long, slow, losing battle against a rising tide of indifference and hostility. One evening, you are sitting in Philemon's old study, now yours, looking out the window at the city. Alexandria is as vibrant as ever, a riot of color and sound and life. But it is a different city from the one you knew as a boy. The temples of the old gods are less crowded now. New, starker places of worship have risen, filled with passionate believers. The language of the street has changed. The old philosophical Greek terms now mixed with a new vocabulary of faith, sin, and salvation. You feel a profound sense of alienation, of being a relic from a bygone age. The library behind you, with its ordered shelves and its quiet pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, feels like a ghost, a beautiful, sad anachronism in this new world. You pick up the codex Philemon gave you, its leather cover worn smooth by the touch of your hands over the decades. You read a passage he had marked, a quote from the philosopher Zeno. The goal of life is living in agreement with nature. You wonder what he would say now, if nature itself, the nature of human society, had so fundamentally changed. You are living in a storm, and you are the keeper of a single, flickering candle, and you can feel a cold wind beginning to blow. That cold wind intensifies over the next decade. The Roman Empire, once a guarantor of a certain kind of civic order, finds itself increasingly fractured by internal strife and the rise of a new, fervent faith, Christianity. In Alexandria, the friction is palpable. The city, always a volatile mix of cultures and beliefs, becomes a battleground of ideas that frequently spills over into actual violence. The followers of the old gods, the Hellenistic pagans, clash with the growing Christian population. The Jewish community, with its own ancient traditions, is caught in the middle. Riots become more frequent. You see temples defaced, statues toppled. The calm, scholarly debates of the museum are drowned out by the passionate, uncompromising sermons. The library, as the most potent symbol of pagan intellectualism, becomes a target of suspicion and outright hostility. You hear the whispers in the marketplace, the accusations leveled by street corner preachers. They call it a storehouse of lies, a temple of heathen vanity filled with the frivolous philosophies of men who lived in darkness before the coming of the true light. They speak of the scrolls as if they are not just paper and ink, but objects of spiritual contagion that poison the souls of the faithful. This rhetoric, once confined to the fanatical fringe, slowly seeps into the mainstream. It offers simple, satisfying answers to a populace buffeted by economic hardship and political instability. It is easier to blame a book for your troubles than to understand the complex forces of history. You are now an old man, your back bent from a lifetime spent hunched over desks and scrolls. Your hands, once so steady, are now spotted with age and tremble slightly. You have outlived all your contemporaries. The scribes who work under you are of a new generation. They view the library's past glories as a distant legend. To them, the threat is not a hypothetical fire, but the very real possibility of a mob at the gates. You do what you can. You try to build bridges. You invite Christian scholars to study the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible that was, by legend, created in this very library centuries ago. You point out that many early Christian thinkers were deeply influenced by the Platonic philosophy that fills your shelves. You argue for a shared tradition of text and reason, but you are speaking a language that few are willing to hear. The time for dialogue is passing. The turning point comes with the appointment of a new patriarch, a man named Theophilus. He is a man of fierce conviction and political cunning, a true believer who sees the lingering influence of paganism in Alexandria as a cancer that must be excised. He obtains a decree from the Emperor Theodosius in far-off Constantinople, authorizing the destruction of all pagan temples in Alexandria. The decree is a death sentence for the old world. The first to fall is the Serapeum, the magnificent temple dedicated to Serapis that had long housed a daughter library, a large collection of scrolls meant for the public. A Christian mob, incited by Theophilus's sermons and legally sanctioned by the emperor's decree, storms the temple. You watch from a distance, from the roof of the main library, a helpless observer of this new kind of fire, a fire of pure ideology. You see the great cult statue of Serapis, a masterpiece of ivory and gold, pulled down and smashed to pieces. You see the scrolls from its library brought out into the courtyard, not to be read or preserved, but to be gleefully tossed onto a massive bonfire. The crowd cheers as the accumulated knowledge of medicine, astronomy, and literature is offered up as a sacrifice to their intolerant god. The sight does not fill you with anger, but with a profound, bone-deep weariness. It is the fulfillment of Philemon's prophecy. The age of answers has arrived in fire and fury. After the destruction of the Serapeum, you know it is only a matter of time. The great library, the mother institution, is the last and greatest symbol. You gather your remaining scribes, their faces pale and frightened. There is no talk of fighting back. It is impossible. You are a handful of aging scholars against a tide of religious fervor that has the backing of the state. Your conversation is one of salvage, of triage. What can be saved? And how? The vaults beneath the building are no longer safe. They would be the first place the mob would search. A plan begins to form, a desperate, pathetic echo of the grand project of the library itself. It is a plan not of preservation, but of dispersal. You cannot save the library, but perhaps you can save a few of its seeds. You instruct your scribes to choose. Each one is to select a small number of scrolls, not the most famous or the most obviously valuable, but those they personally deem essential. A work of mathematics for one, a collection of poetry for another, a treatise on agriculture for a third. They are to make copies if time allows, and then, under the cover of darkness, they are to smuggle these scrolls out of the library and hide them. Some are given to trusted friends in the city. Some are buried in clay jars in the desert, a practice you've read about in ancient Egyptian texts. Some are entrusted to merchants traveling on the trade routes to the east, to Persia and beyond. It is a frantic, heartbreaking activity. You are presiding over the deliberate dismantling of your own life's work. To choose one scroll is to condemn 100 others. You walk through the great hall, past the shelves that hold the history of the world, and you are forced to decide which voices will be silenced forever. Do you save Plato or a lesser-known Stoic? A famous tragedy by Sophocles or the only surviving comedy by Menander? The choice is impossible, an act of intellectual violence. Every decision is a betrayal. You select your own burden. You choose a set of scrolls on astronomy by Claudius Ptolemy, a great Alexandrian scholar. His complex mathematical models of the cosmos are out of favor, but you believe the data, the centuries of careful observation of the stars and planets contained within them, is priceless. It is a knowledge of the physical world, a knowledge based on seeing and measuring, and you feel it is the most potent antidote to the blind faith that is consuming your city. The last day arrives not with a warning, but with the sudden sound of a mob in the distance. It is a familiar sound by now, a low roar like a gathering storm. It grows louder, closer. You can hear the individual shouts, the chants, the rhythmic, angry pulse of a crowd moving with a single, destructive purpose. You and the handful of scribes who remain gather in the great hall. There is a strange calm among you, the resignation of those who have accepted their fate. You look at their faces, these quiet men and women who have dedicated their lives to the silent conversation of words, and you feel a surge of love and pity. The great cedar doors, which have stood for centuries, finally splinter under the assault of a battering ram. They crash open, and the noise of the city, the raw, unfiltered noise you have kept at bay your entire life, floods into the great hall like a Chinese. It is a mob, not of soldiers in disciplined ranks, but of ordinary people. Dock workers, bakers, weavers, their faces twisted with a righteous, terrifying fury you cannot comprehend. They carry torches, and the flickering, unstable light dances across the shelves, making the scrolls seem to tremble. Their leader, a man in the simple black robes of a monk, strides to the center of the hall. He points a trembling, accusatory finger at the silent, ordered shelves. These are the lies of the pagans. He screams, his voice cracking with emotion. The vanity of false knowledge. The pride of arrogant men who thought they could understand God's creation without his revelation. Let the light of the one God purify this place of its filth. The crowd roars its approval and swarms forward. It is a frenzy of destruction. They are not reading, not looking, just destroying. They pull the scrolls from their neat cubbyholes, tearing the papyrus with a sound like ripping cloth. They smash the wooden shelves with axes. They toss the scrolls into a growing bonfire in the center of the majestic hall, the very spot where scholars once sat in quiet contemplation. The smoke is thick and black, carrying the smell of burning paper and cedar, the scent of your entire life being incinerated. You are an old man now. Your back is bent, your hands spotted with age. You do not try to fight. It is as pointless as trying to fight the tide. Instead, you move with a strange, preternatural calm through the chaos. Your mind has retreated to a quiet place deep within you. You are an observer at your own execution. Amidst the screaming and the destruction, you see a small girl, perhaps 7 or 8 years old. She is the daughter of a baker who used to bring bread to the library. You recognize her face, now pale with terror. You move towards her, an instinct you do not understand guiding your feet. You reach up to a low shelf, one that has not yet been touched, and you grab one small, unassuming scroll. It is not Homer. It is not Plato. It is a simple treatise on the cultivation of olive trees, a practical manual filled with generations of agricultural wisdom. It is a book about how to make things grow. You press it into her small hands, tucking it beneath her thin shawl. Run, you whisper, your voice urgent but quiet amidst the din. Do not look back. Find your father, just keep this safe. She looks at you, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. She doesn't understand the value of the object in her hands, only the kindness in your voice. She nods, clutches the scroll, and then she is gone, swallowed by the legs of the crowd, disappearing into the chaos. You watch her go, a tiny vessel carrying a single, fragile spark of knowledge out into the long night that is descending upon the world. You turn back to the fire. You watch as the collected wisdom of Archimedes, the histories of Berossus the Babylonian, the lost plays of Agathon, all curl into ash. You see the flames climbing the very shelves where you first learned to read, the shelves Philemon showed you on that rainy afternoon so long ago. You think of him, and you understand his final act. He did not die in despair. He died with his charge, a guardian to the very end. You close your eyes, and in the roaring darkness, you feel a strange sense of peace. The burden is lifted. The long, losing battle is finally over. The silence you have cultivated your entire life is about to become absolute. Many years have passed since that day. The library is a ruin, its fire-blackened stone scavenged for other buildings, its memory fading even from the landscape of the city. The great memory of mankind is scattered, broken, lost. You survived. How, you are not entirely sure. In the chaos, you simply walked away, an old man nobody noticed, a ghost leaving his own tomb. You live now in a small, dusty village far from the sea, nestled in a green oasis on the edge of the great desert. You are a quiet old man nobody knows. They call you the reader. You teach the village children their letters, using a charred stick to draw the elegant shapes of the Greek alphabet in the dirt. They are good children, full of laughter and simple questions. They think you are just a simple, lonely teacher. They do not know you once walked in halls that contained the entire world. They do not know your hands once touched the thoughts of Aristotle. Some days you sit beneath the shade of an old olive tree, its bark gnarled and ancient, and you watch the children play. Their world is small, bounded by the date palms of the oasis and the endless sand beyond. Their knowledge is practical, immediate. How to find water, how to tend to the goats, which snakes are venomous. It is a necessary knowledge, but your heart aches for the other knowledge they will never have. The knowledge of the stars, of history, of poetry, of the vast and complex conversation they are not even aware they are missing. You have become a library of one, a walking repository of ghosts. At night, you lie on your simple mat and the voices of the dead poets recite their lost verses in your mind. It is a comfort and it is a torture. Sometimes at night, when the desert sky is a vast, clear dome of glittering stars, you wonder about the girl, the baker's daughter. You wonder if she kept the scroll. Perhaps it was lost in the riot. Perhaps her father, fearing it as a pagan artifact, used it to light his oven. Or perhaps, just perhaps, she kept it. Perhaps it was found a generation later by someone who could read it, and they made a copy. Perhaps that single, practical spark of knowledge about how to make things grow caught fire somewhere else, in another city, in another time, passed from hand to hand, a quiet, stubborn refusal to embrace ignorance. You will never know. But as you look up at the pinpricks of light in the sky, the same stars that Ptolemy mapped in the scrolls you tried to save, you decide that it is enough. It has to be. You did not save the world. You did not save the great and glorious library. You failed in your grand purpose. But you saved one small piece. You passed it on. You placed a single seed in the wind. And that, you realize, is all any of us can ever really do. We tend our small gardens. We tell our stories. And we pass a little bit of light to the hand that comes after ours, hoping it will be carried through the darkness. The story of the great library is a quiet one in the end. It is a story not of a single, spectacular fire, but of a long, slow fading. A story of things lost to time, to indifference, to the seductive certainty of simple answers. Thank you for listening to its echo with me tonight. Your presence here in this quiet space, seeking stories in the gentle dark, is its own kind of preservation. Your curiosity, your willingness to listen to the whispers of the past, is its own kind of library. A library of the mind, a sanctuary that no mob can ever burn. Rest now. Let the whispers of the past guide you into gentle, peaceful dreams. Let the weight of the world with all its noise and fury drift away from you like ashes on the wind. The story is over. Your own rest has just begun. Sleep well, sweet dreams. Good night.